everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. I am Monica for those of you that are new to my channel, and today I wanted to bring you along for my family's absolute favorite bread recipe. I've been critiquing and just trying to make the perfect loaf of bread because my family loves their bread. And I've recently, well not recently, but recently in the past year switched to home milled flour. And so it's a little different to work with, and I've been just perfecting my recipe. So I've finally done it, and it's marvelous. It is the perfect bread. You can't tell that it's made with whole wheat, and it's just wonderful. Of course, you could substitute regular all-purpose flour, or I also highly recommend if you want a high-quality bread or flour, but don't want to go the home milled route yet, I will leave the link to the flour that I have bought in the past, and it is wonderful. It is a whole hard white wheat, and it's easy to work with, and it's a great price. So I'll leave that down below. It is from Azure. Actually, a few things I'm using are from Azure. It's a wonderful website, wonderful company, and you get high quality ingredients. So to start off with this recipe, I have my yeast, which I buy in bulk. And you want to do 2 tablespoons of your yeast. And you could do this all by hand, but I am going to be using, hi baby, I'm going to be using my dough hook on my KitchenAid today, just to make life a little easier. To our yeast, I see we're going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar, or you could use honey. Both are excellent in this. Yeah, it is good. And to that, I just added a 1/2 cup of warm water. And so now we're just going to give it a little stir. And let this sit for 5 to 10 minutes to make sure our yeast is alive and well, and it'll puff up, and we'll know it's good to go on to our next step. Okay, so you can see it is bubbled and it is starting to puff up. My house is cold, so it does take it a little longer to do it, but honestly, I know my yeast is good. I just wanted to show this step because it'll really save you on other ingredients. If you aren't sure that your yeast is good or not, doing this step stops you from potentially wasting 10 cups of flour, which is what this recipe takes, if your yeast is bad and your bread's not going to rise. So I just wanted to show you that additional step. So now that we've done that, we know our yeast is good. We're going to add in a 1.5 cups of warm water. And we're also going to add in 4 tablespoons of salted, softened butter and a 1.5 cups of warmed milk. And this is what's going to give it not only amazing flavor, but amazing texture. We're making the bread enriched. It's an optional step. You can make sandwich bread without adding butter and milk, but I'm telling you, it makes the best bread. It just makes it so much better. And then another optional thing that I am putting in is Vital Wheat gluten. And I will say this bread, without adding the Vital Wheat gluten, is still very delicious. All the Vital Wheat gluten does is it gives it a more store-bought texture. And those that have made homemade bread know that the texture is just a little different than a store-bought bread. So if your family is picky, then this is a step that you may want to take. So I'm going to add 3 tablespoons for this big batch. It does not take a lot. And that's done. And then we're going to go ahead and add about 8 cups of flour. And this is my home milled flour that I just put in a gallon jar at a time, and I'll fill it up and then go from there. So that's 8 cups. And then we're going to add a tablespoon of salt. And then the last cup to make it 9. When you're making bread, sometimes you need to add a little more flour, sometimes you need to add a little less flour. So we're going to start with 9 cups and then see where we are on consistency, and we may add up to an additional cup. But I have my dough hook on my KitchenAid, and so we're going to just pop it right over here. Okay, so here's my dough. I have a little helper holding it for me. So after you mix everything up and everything comes together, and you can see it cleaned the sides of the bowl, that's what you want. If it's not doing that and it looks too wet, add a little bit of flour, only a couple tablespoons at a time. It doesn't need to be a big amount because you may not need that much to get it to start doing this. And then you want to knead it for about 5 to 7 minutes. I go longer on the 7-minute side, and then this is what you want whenever you're done. You want it to not stick. It passes the window pane test, and it is good to go. So I just formed it into a little ball. Well, it's not little. It's a big ball. Okay, we gotta move our hands from it. And then you take some oil. I'm just using olive oil. And I also use the same bowl. Some people put it in a different bowl. This bowl's already dirty. So then I just make sure it has oil all over it. And then we're just going to cover this and let it rise until it doubles in size. It could take anywhere from 1.5 to 3 hours depending on how cold or warm your house is. So I will bring you back when we are to that step. Alrighty, so here is our dough, and you can clearly see that it has doubled in size, which is exactly what we want. I have a clean work surface to work with, and I have my 2 loaf pans that I am using. I have this one, and then I also have a half Pullman. If you had a full Pullman size pan, then it would just fit into there, but I just have the half, so I always do one there, and then one either in the stoneware or in my cast iron. The cast iron gives it a beautiful crust. It's marvelous. Either one will work, or you can use glass if that's what you have. I have tons of glass ones too. Those 3 are just my favorite. The Pullman is just kind of awesome. But what you want to do is just deflate your dough. You don't need to flour your surface because this has the oil on it. Just put it on your work surface, and then we're going to cut it in half. And you could be really precise with this and use a scale, but I'm not going to be. And so then you want to set one to the side. Actually, I'll set one right there. So you want to take your roll, and we're just going to kind of stretch it to make sure it's a nice smooth surface. Like so. Because if you have cracks on this, then you'll have cracks on the top of your bread or bottom of your bread, wherever. So we don't want that. And then I'm just going to make a rectangle. There was an air pocket. You don't want any air pockets. I mean, air pockets aren't bad for artisan type bread, but for this we want a nice tight crumb. No air pockets. Okay. And you see I didn't need any extra flour. It's all coming together real nicely. So I wanted this to be the inside so that that's not on the outside of my loaf. And then you're going to roll it in a tight roll like you're doing cinnamon rolls. And then pinch this opening closed as best as you can. Tuck your ends in. And then stick it right in your pan. So I have both ready to go. And now these are going to rise until doubled in size again. Now for the Pullman, I'm just going to put a lid on and let it sit. And when it reaches pretty much the top, it's ready to go. This one, we're going to let it go until it's about an inch and a half over the lip. And then we'll know that it's ready. So it's going to take, because my house is cooler, it's going to take a good hour for them to double again. So I'm just going to let these chill out here and I will bring you back. Okay, so these have risen until double their size. So you can see this is over the lip. This, the Pullman, it's ready to go. So both of these are going to go into a 400-degree oven for 30 to 45 minutes. It just depends on your oven. It takes about 35 for my oven. And you want them to have a nice golden brown. So I will show you whenever these come out. Okay, so here is the finished product. Now these are fresh out of the oven. You can see that one rose beautifully. And then we have this one that really puffed up. So what I do is I let them chill where they're at for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I flip them out and set them on one of these cooling racks until they are completely cooled. I know it's tempting, but do not cut into these until they are completely cool. All right, so these cooled completely, and you can see they are beautiful. And I've let them cool completely. That is a very important step, is to not cut into them until they have cooled completely, because the bread is still going to continue to cook while it's out of the stove. So you could get gummy bread if you don't let it do that. But I wanted to show you the crumb. Look at that. Is that not beautiful? And there's another one. So it is very soft, pliable. It is just like a store-bought bread, only so much better, because you have fresh ingredients, you know exactly what's in it, no preservatives, and you made it yourself. So what is better than that? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you try out the recipe for yourself. If you like it, let me know, and I hope to see you all for my next video. Thanks for watching.